Hello and welcome to Rao's IAS 2021 edition of Prelims Test Series discussion videos based on Rao's Prelims Test Series, specifically curated to prepare aspirants for Prelims 2021. We all know that upcoming Prelims examination of 2021 is to be conducted on 27th of June 2021. It is time, whether you are a beginner or an expert, to start taking practice tests. Now, a lot of people ask why taking tests and why practicing is so important. First and foremost, it helps you in revision of the whole syllabus. Second, it helps you identify important topics from ocean of topics. Then, it lets you keep track of your own preparation and identify the lapses and weak areas. Then it enables you to evolve the right kind of strategy best suited for yourself, whether you are a high attempter or you are a person who keeps yourself limited within 75 questions. Then, through test series, you can assess the competition before the actual prelims examination and then accordingly tweak your preparation. And then finally, it helps you develop tips and tricks which are actually very useful. And all this enables you to hold your nerves, to keep calm and maximize your score in the actual examination. So Rao's IAS test series is a set of 55 tests which caters to both static as well as dynamic needs of prelims examination. It initiates you into testing through topic tests to help you prepare a subject in a piece-by-piece manner, and then followed by thematic tests which then summarizes the complete subject. Along with this, simultaneous focus-based current affair tests are conducted on a monthly basis. And then finally, just before the prelims examination, there will be full-length tests for the fine-tuning of test-taking strategy. So finally, moving to this series. The objective of these discussion videos is to help you understand how UPSC makes questions, thereby empowering you to clear prelims examination. So these discussions will follow the following pattern. We will pick up a previous year question and then gain the conceptual clarity required to solve it. Then we will take questions from Rao's Prelims Test Series which were designed to emulate the same PYQ and will try and solve it. In this process, we will also learn few tips and tricks which can help you enhance your strike rate. So in this manner, each video will give you an insight into 20 topics. So in this video, we will pick up 10 MCQs from Rao's two of the topic tests on polity, constitution and governance, that is polity topic tests 1 and 2. Let us now begin the discussion. So let us begin the discussion with a question which was asked in 2018 prelims examination. This question deals with introduction of English education in India. Which of the following led to the introduction of English education in India? Charter Act of 1813, General Committee of Public Instruction 1823, and Orientalist and Anglicist controversy. Now, one important takeaway from previous year questions is that the acts passed by the Britishers, like Regulating Act and Pitt's India Act, Charter Acts, various Government of India Acts, these are very important. And when you go through any standard textbook which you are referring for polity, make sure that you know the provisions of these. And so this previous year question also demonstrates the significance of Charter Act. So before solving this question, let us first understand the sequence of introduction of English language in our country. We all know that there were very few people who understood or spoke English before British arrived in India. And so after they started to control a lot of territory, a need was felt to educate a lot of Indians and to make them literate in English language. And so for the first time in Charter Act of 1813, the principle of encouraging learned Indians and promoting knowledge of modern sciences in the country was incorporated. And for that purpose, the Act directed the company to sanction 1 lakh rupees annually. However, interesting thing is that even this 1 lakh rupee was not made available till 1823. And that was mainly because of the controversy raised on the question of the direction that this expenditure should take place. And that is Orientalist and Anglicist controversy. So in 1823, the Governor General in Council appointed a General Committee of Public Instruction, which had the responsibility to grant the 1 lakh rupees for education. Now this committee had 10 members and the 10 members were divided into two ideologies. One was Orientalist and another one was Anglicist. While Orientalists of this opinion that the emphasis of education in India should be on traditional Indian learning, but of course it should also include modern science. But on the other hand, Anglicists believed that the government spending on education should be exclusively for modern studies. And so because of this controversy, the funding of even 1 lakh rupee was delayed. So now let us see the question. Which of the following led to the introduction of English education in India? Of course, Charter Act of 1813 first time mentioned the sanction of grant. General Committee of Public Instruction 1823 obviously was the committee which would ultimately decide where the money would go, and Orientalist and Anglicist controversy played an important role in the way the amount will be spent, and that is why the answer was D, 1, 2 and 3. So keeping in mind this particular question along with various others, a question was formulated in Prelims Test Series. Consider the following statements about the Charter Act of 1813. Statement 1. The company was deprived of its monopoly of trade with India. Statement 2. The Governor General of Bengal became the Governor General of India. And Statement 3. The Act provided for the codification of laws in India. Now, there are two things in this particular question. First, we are going to understand the important characteristics and provisions of Charter Act 1833. And then we will look into how just by a single statement we can solve the whole question. Let us see how. Starting with the provisions of Charter Act 1833. So we know that the charter given to the company was extended only for 20 years in 1813. And so there was a need for another Charter Act in 1833. So first and foremost, the Governor General of Bengal became the Governor General of India. The Governor General in Council was to control, superintendent and direct the civil and military affairs of the company. And so Bombay, Bengal, Madras and other regions were subjected to complete control of Governor General in Council. Apart from that, the Act of 1833 gave the Governor General in Council the power to legislate for the whole of the British territories in India. These laws were applicable to all persons, British or Indian foreigners, and also they were enforceable by all courts in India, and it laid the grounds for codification of laws in our country. So in a step towards codification of laws, the Act of 1833 authorized the Governor General to appoint Indian law commissioners to study, collate and codify various rules and regulations prevailing in India. And finally, the company was deprived of its monopoly of trade with China, although this act permitted the English to settle freely in India. And so, as you can directly see that the statement 1, the company was deprived of its monopoly of trade with India, is totally incorrect. And let's just see that with this particular information can we solve this question. And yes, only option B does not have statement 1. And so the right answer is of course B. Even if you do not know about 2 or 3 being correct, you just have to know about which particular act did away with the monopoly of East India Company with trade with India. Let us know in the comment section whether you know that particular act or not. Okay, so moving on from the acts, after that what becomes important in polity as well as in modern history are the various commissions which was set to actually discuss the transfer of power from the British government to Indian leadership. For example, in 2015, UPSC asked with reference to cabinet mission which of the following statements are correct. So the cabinet mission came to India aimed to discuss the transfer of powers from British to Indian leadership with the aim of preserving India's unity and granting its independence. And this was in 1946. Similarly, in 2010, UPSC asked a question about Cripps mission, which was another failed attempt even before cabinet mission came. So it was an attempt by the British government to secure full Indian cooperation and support for their efforts in World War II. And so you can see that these kinds of missions are very important. So let us discuss the cabinet mission first. Now towards the end of their rule, the British found that their temporary patronage of Muslim League actually conflicted with their long-standing need for Indian unity. Now this desire for Indian unity post-independence was symbolized by the cabinet mission, which arrived in India in March 1946. So first and foremost, the cabinet mission recommended a loose three-tier confederation. The center government was to be very, very weak, controlling only few affairs like foreign affairs, defense, communication, and the existing provincial assemblies were grouped into three sections: Section A, Section B, and Section C. Now, the sections or groups of provinces would comprise various regional units, and they would have power to set up intermediate level executives and legislatures. So this was a proposal of cabinet mission, and through the scheme the British expected to maintain Indian unity. The proposal almost satisfied Jinnah's insistence on a large Pakistan. So initially the approval was given by Muslim League, but later on in his speech Nehru rejected the idea that provinces would be obliged to join a group and stated that the Congress was neither bound nor committed to the plan. And after this particular speech of Nehru, the Muslim League withdrew its approval to the plan. Of course, it recommended a federal government. So statement 1 is of course correct. But since this plan was more about how the post-independent India would look like and how it would formulate its constitution, it did not have anything to do with enlargement of powers of Indian courts or to provide for more Indians in Indian civil services. These matters were dealt with in Charter Acts or Government of India Acts for that matter. And so the right answer is A, 1 only. So realizing the importance of these missions, we have formulated a question in our prelims test series on cabinet mission. Which of the following statements are correct about cabinet mission? Statement 1. Sir Patrick Lawrence was successful in developing an understanding and consensus among the major political parties. Let's leave this statement for a second. Statement 2. It proposed a two-tier federal constitutional structure with each tier having its own constitution. Now here you can see that it had recommended a loose three-tier confederation. So if you remember just this point, you already know that statement 2 is incorrect. And let's see how many options are there which do not contain statement 2. So A is gone, so is C as well as D, and we are left with only B as the right answer. A province could leave a group only after the first general election held under the group constitution. Let us now quickly understand statement 1 and 3 as well. So Sir Patrick Lawrence was actually the head of the cabinet mission, and so it was under his leadership all the negotiations were going on. The cabinet mission held a conference at Shimla to bring about an understanding among the major political parties but failed to achieve it, and so that is why this is incorrect. Apart from things which we have discussed, an extraordinary phenomenon of cabinet plan was that once a section formed a group constitution, no province would be free to withdraw from the group it was in. But a province could leave such a group only after the first general election held under the group constitution, and so that was one of the major stumbling block between the Congress and the Muslim League, and so that is why only the statement 3 is correct. A province could leave a group only after the first general election held under the group constitution. So moving on from there, and now taking up a question which emphasizes the importance of memorizing the names of prominent Indian freedom fighters or contributors to the national struggle for India's independence. This is an instance of 2019 prelims examination with reference to Indian national movement. Consider the following pairs. On the left hand side you have the names of people, and on the right hand side you have the positions held by them. Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru, President, All India Liberal Federation. Statement 2, K.C. Niyogi, Member, the Constituent Assembly. Statement 3, P.C. Joshi, General Secretary, Communist Party of India. So let us now quickly understand few of the points regarding these people because they can be repeatedly asked in prelims examination. Starting with Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru, who was a prominent Indian freedom fighter, lawyer as well as a politician. And when the Montagu Report of 1918 was made public, there was a divide in Congress over it. The moderates welcomed it, of course, while the extremists opposed it. And this led to a fracture in Congress, with moderate leaders forming All India Liberal Federation. Although the party was founded by Surendranath Banerjee, but Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru was its important leader. And hence, of course, statement 1 is correct. Then K.C. Niyogi was an Indian politician from the state of West Bengal. He was a member of Constituent Assembly, That is correct. But there is some extra information which you need about him. He was also the member of first cabinet of independent India, and also he was the chairman of India's first finance commission. And so that is why he is a very important person in India's modern history. Then moving on to PC Joshi or Puran Chand Joshi. We all know him as one of the earliest communist leaders of our country. He was just not the General Secretary of Communist Party of India, but indeed he was the first General Secretary of Communist Party of India. And so you can see that the right answer would be D. 1, 2, 3, all of them are correct. Similarly, we have formulated a question for you. Which of the following were not the members of Constituent Assembly in our Prelims Test Series? Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, M.K. Gandhi or Gandhiji, Subhash Chandra Bose, and Sarojini Naidu. Now when you read any textbook on polity, making of the constitution and the processes and the debates of Constituent Assembly become very important, and it is contained in almost any book, be it NCERT or even Lakshmikant. And so when the major and minor committees' names and their members are given, it is important to keep that in mind. For example, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad was member of 5 different committees. Rajendra Prasad, we all know, was the head of the steering committee itself. Sarojini Naidu was in the Fundamental Rights Subcommittee. And so when the question is about which of the following were not the members of Constituent Assembly, focus on the word not. And you can clearly remember that 1, 2 and 5 were the members. And we all know that Gandhiji chose not to participate in the process of formulation of constitution. And so 3 has to be included in the right answer. Similarly, we know that Subhash Chandra Bose met with an accident in 1945. Since then, he was untraceable. And so, he was also not the part of the Constituent Assembly. He could not be the part of Constituent Assembly, and hence, the right answer is C, 3 and 4. That is, Gandhiji and Bose were not the part of the Constituent Assembly. Next, we will take up a type of question which is mandatorily asked by UPSC every year, and these are political theory conceptual questions. For example, in 2018, UPSC asked which one of the following reflects the most appropriate relation between law and liberty. Statement A says if there are more laws, there is less liberty. So obviously the implied meaning of this particular statement is that laws are created to curb the liberty of the individuals. But this of course is absolutely incorrect. You can cite hundreds of laws, not just from India but from across the world, which have actually provided more liberty to the individuals. You can take the example of laws such as MG Narega, or for that matters provisions created in the Constitution of India to protect and promote SC/ST communities and other vulnerable sections. These are laws which have been created and they have enhanced the liberty of the individual. So statement A is obviously incorrect. On the other hand, it is also true that there are a lot of laws which curb the liberty, but existence of such law would not change the incorrectness of this statement. Before considering statement B, let us now just analyze statement C. If there is liberty, laws have to be made by the people. Now here, the statement tries to draw a parallel between who makes the laws, decides whether there will be liberty in the society or the state or not. Now it is naturally commonsensical to think that whether there will be a liberty in a society or not will not be determined as to who is making the laws. There are democracies in the world which are indirect democracies, in which the laws are made by the representatives on behalf of the people, whereas there are democracies which are direct democracies, where the laws are directly made by the people. And so far, there is no clear-cut distinction as to whether the indirect or the direct democracies have more liberty. And so, C is also incorrect. Statement D is if laws are changed too often, liberty is in danger. It all depends upon the kind of change which is being brought about and not the frequency of the change itself. Liberty will be in danger if there is a negative change in the concept or the law providing liberty. Whereas if it is changing in the positive direction, liberty will be boosted. And so this is also incorrect. And so we are left with the right answer B. If there are no laws, there is no liberty. Now in order to understand this in a very simple terms, In a society where there are no laws, all the people have liberty. All the people can do whatever they want. You can do whatever you want, but so does everybody else can. For example, if there are no laws and in that society, if someone does not likes you and is more powerful than you, they can literally kill you. And hence, if there are no laws, there is no liberty, the bigger fish eats the smaller fish. So the concepts like these are very important to be grasped from the basics, and that is provided by the political theory book of NCERT. And so we have formulated a similar question. Consider the following statements about liberty in our prelims test series. Statement 1. Liberty means absence of restraints on the activities of the individuals. Statement 2. Liberty in the Indian Constitution is absolute. So let us just first understand the liberty, which means the absence of restraints on the activities of the individuals. But it's just not limited to that, because absence of restraints is a very negative concept of liberty. But the positive concept of liberty implies at the same time to provide for opportunities for the development of individual personalities. And if a constitution or a law or a legal framework provides for both absence of restraints as well as opportunities for the development of individual personalities according to his or her own will, that will be the real liberty. And so statement 1, liberty means absence of restraints on the activities of individuals, is absolutely correct. Then if we talk about the concept of liberty in India's constitution, we know that constitution gives a lot of liberty, but most of the freedoms are not absolute in nature, but rather they are restricted by reasonable restrictions. For example, we have Article 19(1), which provides a lot of freedoms. But at the same time, followed by that, we have Article 19(2), which restricts almost the same freedoms in some or the other respects. And so, the concept of liberty in Indian Constitution is not absolute, and that is why the right answer is A, 1 only. Similar to the concept of liberty, the concept of federalism is also very important. And when you read the newspapers continuously throughout year, you will see that maximum coverage is given to the issues arising out of federalism, whether it is with respect to the central-state relations in matters of discretion of governors, president's rule, or the laws being reserved by the governor for the president's approval. And so it becomes very important. And UPSC has asked question in 2017, which one of the following is not a feature of Indian federalism? And 4 options are given. Before going into that, let us first understand the concept of federalism itself. So federalism as a political concept means dividing powers between member units. So unlike unitary state, the sovereignty in federal system is non-centralized. So there is a central government, and then there are a lot of regional governments headed by the state governments. Now, you should not confuse between a federal system and a unitary system just on the basis of whether or not at least 2 levels of governments exist or not. What is more important is that independent existence of these state units autonomously from the center. So for example, there are state and provinces in China as well, but China still is a unitary system because in their constitution, it is not obligatory for the center to create regional territories. And that is why when the distribution of the power between the center and the state finds its place in the constitution, and when these territories or the regions are protected by the constitution, that is when it becomes a federalist in nature. And that is why there are few important things which is a must for a federalist structure. First, a written constitution. And then to reinforce the constitution, you need independent judiciary. To protect the rights of the states, you need independent judiciary, and also you need bicameral parliament in which one of the houses represents the states or the wills or the wishes of the states. For example, in case of United States of America, that would be Senate. In case of India, that would be Rajya Sabha. So these are some of the essential features of a federalist unit. And so let us just now see the concept of federalism in India's constitution. So we know that the Constitution of India establishes a federal system of government and it contains all the usual features of federation. We know we have two governments, state and center. We have division of powers through 7th schedule, and then our constitution of course is a written, and we have a supremacy of constitution along with quite rigid process through which constitution can be amended, and then we of course have independent judiciary and bicameral legislature as we have discussed. Moreover, an important aspect to remember about India's federation is that the term federation or the federalism has nowhere been used in the constitution. Instead, Article 1 described India, we all know, as a union of states. Now, this term union of state means two things. First, Indian Federation is not the result of an agreement by the states, which was the case with the United States of America. And no state has the right to secede from the federation. And so, the question which one of the following is not a feature of Indian federalism, the statement A is obviously correct. There is an independent judiciary in India. Powers, of course, have been clearly divided between the center and the states. Statement C is obviously correct. The federating units have been given unequal representation in Rajya Sabha, but option D is incorrect because it is not a result of an agreement among the federating units. And so, which one of the following is not a feature of Indian federalism? This D is not the feature of Indian federalism and hence the right answer. And so along the similar lines, we have formulated another question checking an important concept of federalism. Consider the following statements about federalism. Statement 1. The supremacy of the constitution is a must for federalism. We have understood why it is important. The legal supremacy of court is essential for the federal system. We now know why is it important. Statement 3. The states in India are indestructible. Now this is an incorrect statement. Now with regard to statement 3, it is incorrect because Article 3 gives power to the Parliament to alter states, to form a new state by separation of territory from any state or by uniting two or more states, increase the area of any state, diminish the area of any state, alter the boundaries of any state and alter the name of any state. And all this can be done by Parliament, and there is no say of states or state legislatures in this. Of course, they have the freedom to express their opinion, but the Parliament is not bound by their opinion. And so that is why statement 3 is incorrect. Statement 4 is also incorrect because we just understood. Because we all know that in Rajya Sabha, not all members have equal representation, which is not the case with USA. In Senate, each state has 2 members. And so that is why the right answer is only 1 and 2 are correct, leading us to the right answer B. So after covering 2 important concepts of polity, let us now start with the actual provisions of the Constitution. And this particular section deals with that of fundamental rights. No one can ever emphasize the importance of fundamental rights in life or in UPSC examination. Just look at 2020 Prelims examination. UPSC asked which one of the following categories of fundamental rights incorporates protection against untouchability as a form of discrimination: a right against exploitation, right to freedom, right to constitutional remedies, and right to equality. Now we know that fundamental rights are segregated into various parts. If you look at the PDF of Original Constitution of India, which is available for free on Ministry of Law and Justice website, and if you look at the index, you can see the articles and their headings. So part 1 is union and its territories, part 2 is citizenship, part 3 is fundamental rights. And in that, the first set of rights are right to equality, which contains Article 14, equality before law, Article 15, prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth, Article 16, equality of opportunity in matters of public employment, and Article 17 deals with abolition of untouchability, which is what has been asked in Prelims 2020. And so the right answer is right to equality contains protection against untouchability. So now you can understand 2 things. Fundamental rights as a portion is very important, and it is also very important to look at the text of original Constitution. And so that is why we have formulated this question. Which of the following rights are guaranteed under Article 19 of Indian Constitution? Statement 1, the right to assemble peaceably with or without arms. Statement 2. The right to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business. Statement 3. The right to protection in respect of conviction for offences. Statement 4. The right to free speech, expression and education. And so again in this case we will look at the provisions of original constitution and what Article 19 contains. So you can see that Article 19 is the first article under right to freedom, and it talks about right to freedom of speech and expression, to assemble peaceably and without arms, to form association or unions, to move freely throughout the territory of India, to reside and settle in any part of the territory of India, and to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business. So now you can see that statement 1 is obviously incorrect because Article 19 gives the right to freedom to assemble peaceably and without arms, not with arms. And so if you just can recall that this particular statement is incorrect, obviously you will arrive at the right answer because all of them contain 1 as an option. But nonetheless, we will discuss it. Article 19 gives the right of freedom to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business. There is no mention of right to protection in respect of conviction for offences, which is a matter of another article. Let us know in the comment section which that article is. And Article 19 talks about right to freedom of speech, expression, but not of education. Since these three are clubbed together, it will be incorrect. And so that is why the right answer is A2 only. Okay, so after covering an important aspect of fundamental rights, the next comes the part 4 of the Constitution or Directive Principles of State Policy. With reference to the provisions contained in Part 4 of the Constitution of India, which of the following statements are correct was the question which was asked in the last prelims, that is 2020 prelims. Statement 1, they shall be enforceable by courts. Statement 2, they shall not be enforceable by any court. Statement 3, the principles laid down in this part are to influence the making of laws by the state. Now, one thing which you can directly derive from the framing of these statements is that either one or two, not both of them can be true at the same time, and that is also reflected in the options. So let us now just learn few things about Directive Principles of State Policy or Part 4 of the Constitution of India. They are contained from Article 36 to Article 51 of the Constitution of India. And if you compare the Part 4 with Part 3, that is fundamental rights, Part 4 is not enforceable by any court, but the principles laid down therein are considered in the governance of the country. The Constitution makes it a duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws to establish a just society. Statement 1 is incorrect, whereas Statement 2 and 3 both are correct, leading us to the right answer D. And so we have also formulated question on Directive Principle of State Policy in our Prelims Test Series. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. The provisions of the Directive Principle of State Policy were borrowed from the Constitution of Soviet Union. Statement 2. The Constituent Assembly included the list of DPSPs in the Part 4 of the Constitution. Statement 3. Apart from articles mentioned in DPSP, there are no articles in the Constitution which direct the state to make certain policies for the people. Now this, I must admit, is a tricky question. The formulation of the sentences are long, and especially the statement 3 is a tricky one because it not only requires you to understand and learn Part 4, but it requires you to have knowledge about other parts and articles of the Constitution as well. And hence in this regard, let us first understand what these things are. The source of DPSP. The provisions of DPSP of our Constitution have been borrowed from Irish Constitution and not the Soviet Union. The Constituent Assembly did include the list of DPSPs in Part 4 of the Constitution, and hence the second statement is correct, although the third statement is incorrect. We know that DPSPs do direct the state to make certain policies for the people, but there are other articles in our Constitution which also do the same thing. For example, Article 335, which deals with the claims of SCs and STs to services and posts, talk about claims of the members of STs and STs shall be taken into consideration consistently with the maintenance of efficiency of the administration. Similarly, Article 350A suggests that every state and every local authority within the state will provide adequate facilities for instruction in mother tongue at primary stage of education to children belonging to the linguistic minority groups. Article 351 considers it the duty of union to promote spread of Hindi language and to develop it so that it may serve as a medium of expression of all elements of the composite culture of India. So now you can understand that how important it is to understand the constitution, because the questions can be complex and they could include statements from various other parts of the constitution as well. And now, as far as this question is concerned, of course the right answer is B, 2 only. So from the directive principles of state policy, the natural progression would be the fundamental duties. The previous year question we have taken to demonstrate this particular concept is from 2017. Which of the following statements are true of the fundamental duties of Indian citizen? Statement 1. A legislative process has been provided to enforce these duties. Statement 2. They are correlative to legal duties. So let us now understand few basic things about fundamental duties. First and foremost, there is no legislative process provided to enforce the fundamental duties, and they are not correlative to legal duties. The fundamental duties are also non-justiciable. The Constitution does not provide for their effective or direct enforcement by the courts. Moreover, there is no legal sanction against their violation. And so you can easily see that both of these statements are incorrect, leading us to the right answer D, neither 1 nor 2. And so in our prelims test series, we have formulated a question on fundamental duties. Which of the following are the features of fundamental duties? Statement 1. The fundamental duties are both civic and moral in nature. Statement 2. They emphasize on the Indian way of life, especially respecting and preserving the Indian culture. Statement 3. This provision is not applicable upon the foreigners. Only the Indian citizens of India will obey these constitutional duties. And last statement, there are clear differences between the fundamental rights and fundamental duties. So first and foremost, the fundamental duties are indeed both civic and moral in nature. If you have read part 4A, that is the fundamental duties, you must have seen it considers it a duty of Indians to abide by the constitution and respect its ideals and institutions. It wants us to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood. So all these are civic duties, but at the same time, it wants us to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers and wildlife. And it also wants us to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. So these are moral in nature. So the fundamental duties are both civic as well as moral in nature. Of course, they emphasize on the Indian way of life, especially respecting and preserving Indian culture, specifically given in Article 51A F. Then, this is also true that this provision is not applicable upon the foreigners, and in fact it is applicable only on Indians, because the Article 51A starts, it shall be the duty of every citizen of India and not the people. And so this part is applicable only to the citizens of India. And of course, there are clear differences between fundamental rights and fundamental duties. Rights on one hand are justiciable, enforceable by court, whereas fundamental duties on the other hand are non-justiciable and non-enforceable. And so statement 1, 2, 3, 4 all are correct, leading us to the right answer D. Let us now move on to an important aspect of polity, which is the amendment of the Constitution. And so in 2019, UPSC asked recently, consider the following statements. Statement 1. The 44th Amendment to the Constitution of India introduced an article placing the election of Prime Minister beyond judicial review. Statement 2. The Supreme Court of India struck down the 99th Amendment to the Constitution of India as being violative of the independence of the judiciary. So in this regard, let us first see what this amendment is all about, which placed the election of Prime Minister beyond the judicial review. So, the Parliament passed 39th Amendment to the Constitution, which removed the authority of the Supreme Court to adjudicate petitions regarding elections to President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Speaker of Lok Sabha. Instead, a body constituted by Parliament would be vested with the power to resolve such election disputes. And so, that was not 44th Amendment of the Constitution, but rather 39th Amendment to the Constitution, and that is why statement 1 is incorrect. Now, the second statement deals with the National Judicial Appointments Commission, which was a body tasked with appointing judges to higher judiciary in India. You know that currently appointment of Supreme Court judges is being dealt with in Article 124 of the Constitution, which was amended by 99th Amendment to the Constitution. With this amendment, a commission known by the name of National Judicial Appointment Commission was added, which replaced the collegiate system with NJAC. However, it was struck down by the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court reasoned that the 99th Amendment was unconstitutional. And in arriving at this conclusion, the court evaluated the theory of separation of powers and held that interference of the executive in the appointment of judges to the higher judiciary was violation of the theory. And that is why second statement is correct, leading us to the right answer B, 2 only. Since the UPSC has asked questions on 2 important amendments, and that is why we have formulated a question in our Prelims Test Series which will help you in revision of 3 other constitutional amendments. Which of the following constitutional amendments are related to or affect the fundamental duties? 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, 44th Constitutional Amendment Act and 96th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now, if you're studying fundamental duties chapter of any static book, you know that there are only 2 constitutional amendments dealing with fundamental duties. First is 42nd Constitutional Amendment, which led to the addition of Part 4A into the Constitution of India. The fundamental duties of citizens were added to the Constitution by 42nd Amendment in 1976, which was after the recommendation of Swaran Singh Committee. And later on, 86th Constitutional Amendment in 2002 made it the fundamental duty of the parents of the children from 6 to 14 years of age to provide them education. And so you can clearly see that there are only 2 such amendments. Whereas if you see the options, only one of them is given, and hence 44th Constitutional Amendment and 96th Amendment do not have anything to do with fundamental duties, leading us to the right answer A, 1 only. Finally, we have come to the last and the 10th question. This question is from the latest prelims examination 2020, and this deals with a very important concept, which is the basic structure of the Constitution of India. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. The Constitution of India defines its basic structure in terms of federalism, secularism, fundamental rights and democracy. Statement 2. The Constitution of India provides for judicial review to safeguard the citizens' liberties and to preserve the ideals on which the Constitution is based. Now, if we talk about basic structure of the Constitution, first and foremost is that Constitution nowhere has mentioned or defined the basic structure, but rather it finds its genesis, we all know, in epic Keswanand Bharti case, where the Supreme Court laid down a new doctrine of basic structure of the Constitution. And hence, statement 1 is incorrect because it says the Constitution of India defines its basic structure. Constitution of India does not define its basic structure. Whereas if you see the second statement, the Constitution of India provides for judicial review to safeguard the citizens' liberties. Yes, it does provide, because if you see Article 32, it provides for restoration of fundamental rights by issuing writs of habeas corpus mandamus and various others by the Supreme Court, and similar powers have been entrusted with high courts as well. And also if you read Article 13, the Supreme Court has the power to declare a law as unconstitutional if it is found to be violative of Part 3, which is the fundamental rights, and hence the right answer is B, 2 only. And since one of the aspects of basic structure has already been asked in UPSC recently, we have tried to formulate a question on another dimension. The question which is asked in our Prelims Test Series is, which of the following are the elements of basic structure of the Indian Constitution? 1. welfare state. 2. Freedom and dignity of the individual. 3. Harmony and balance between the fundamental rights and directive principles. 4. Limited power of the parliament to amend the constitution. And 5. Effective access to justice. Now we all know that after Keshwanand Bharti case, various judgments by Supreme Court have come up which have increased or enhanced the scope of basic feature of the or basic structure of the constitution. And so let us first look at few of the important components which now Supreme Court considers as essential to basic structure. Supremacy of the constitution, sovereign, democratic and republic nature of Indian polity, secular character of the constitution, separation of power between legislature, executive and judiciary, federal character of the constitution, judicial review, parliamentary system, rule of law, principle of equality, free and fair elections, independence of judiciary, principles underlying the fundamental rights, power of the Supreme Court under Article 32, 136, 144 and 142, and powers of the High Court under Article 226 and 227. So these are the elements or the components of the Constitution which have been defined by the Supreme Court as basic structure. And so there are limitations on the powers of the Parliament to amend these. And these are easy to think of also. But what are difficult to memorize and to be recalled in examination are some other, which have been given by the Supreme Court in their various judgments, which are welfare state, limited power of the parliament to amend the constitution, effective access to justice, harmony and balance between the fundamental rights and directive principles, and freedom and dignity of individual. And so if you analyze our prelims test series question, all of them have been included in basic structure of the constitution. Now this question was asked so that to make you remember some of the components of the basic structure which are quite difficult to recall.